Have you ever noticed that the man who owned the entire world died with absolutely nothing in his hands? History is filled with tales of kings and conquerors, men who amassed wealth, power, and territory beyond imagination. They build palaces, hoard treasures, and leave behind legacies etched in stone. But none of them compare to Alexander the Great. In just 13 years, he marched from the small kingdom of Macedonia to the edges of the known world, conquering every army that stood in his way, uniting continents, and forging an empire that stretched from the Balkans to the Himalayas. He was a military genius, a leader whose name became synonymous with victory, a man who seemed invincible. Yet when he died at the age of 33, he had no crown in his hands, no treasure by his side, no heirs ready to take his place. He left behind an empire on the brink of collapse and a mystery that has haunted historians and scientists for more than 2,000 years. Was his death the result of a single cup of wine laced with poison, or was it a tiny mosquito carrying a deadly virus that brought down the most powerful man in the world? This is the story of Alexander the Great, a man who conquered the known world only to be undone by a mystery we still cannot solve. To understand the magnitude of Alexander's achievement, we must first step back to the world he was born into. In the 4th century BCE, the known world was divided into warring kingdoms and empires. The Persian Empire, the largest and most powerful realm of its time, stretched from the Mediterranean Sea to the borders of India, ruling over dozens of cultures and peoples. Greece, a collection of independent city-states, was torn by internal conflict, its people divided by rivalries and alliances. Macedonia, a kingdom on the northern edge of Greece, was seen as a backward, barbaric land, dismissed by the powerful Greek city-states of Athens and Sparta. It was in this world that Alexander was born in 356 BCE, the son of King Philip II of Macedonia and Queen Olympias. From an early age, he was trained for greatness. His father taught him the art of war, while his tutor, the great philosopher Aristotle, taught him philosophy, science, and literature. Alexander was a quick learner, a born leader, and a young man with an unquenchable thirst for glory. When Alexander was 20 years old, his father was assassinated, and he ascended to the Macedonian throne. The kingdom was in chaos. The Greek city-states, seeing an opportunity to break free from Macedonian rule, rebelled. The tribes to the north, long a threat to Macedonia, prepared to invade. Alexander did not hesitate. He immediately crushed the rebellion, marching on the city of Thebes and destroying it as a warning to others. He then turned his attention to the north, defeating the barbarian tribes and securing his borders. By the time he was 22, he had solidified his control over Macedonia and Greece, and he was ready to embark on the adventure that would define his life, the conquest of the Persian Empire. What followed was a 13-year campaign of conquest that would rewrite the map of the known world, a series of victories so stunning, so rapid, that they seem almost mythical. Alexander's conquests were defined by speed, strategy, and an unwavering belief in his own destiny. He led his army, a force of just 30,000 infantry and 5,000 cavalry, across mountains, deserts, and rivers, covering thousands of miles in just a few short years. He never lost a single battle, a feat unmatched by any conqueror before or since. His first major victory came in 334 BCE when he crossed the Hellespont Strait into Asia Minor and defeated a Persian army at the Battle of Granicus. The Persians, confident in their numbers and their cavalry, underestimated the Macedonian army. But Alexander, with his brilliant tactical mind, led a charge that broke the Persian lines, killing hundreds of enemy soldiers and securing a decisive victory. It was the first of many such triumphs. In 333 BCE, Alexander faced the Persian Emperor Darius III at the Battle of Issus. Darius led an army of over 100,000 men, vastly outnumbering Alexander's forces. But Alexander once again used his strategic genius to turn the tide. he led his cavalry on a daring flanking maneuver, charging directly at Darius himself. The Persian emperor, terrified by the oncoming attack, fled the battlefield, leaving his army to be slaughtered. Alexander's victory at Issus opened the door to Syria and Phoenicia, and he quickly conquered the coastal cities, cutting off the Persian navy from its bases. In 332 BCE, he laid siege to the city of Tyre, a wealthy and powerful port that refused to surrender. The siege lasted 7 months, but Alexander's determination never wavered. He built a causeway from the mainland to the island city, using ships and debris to create a path for his army. When the city finally fell, Alexander ordered most of its inhabitants to be sold into slavery, a brutal reminder of his resolve to crush any resistance. From Tyre, Alexander marched south into Egypt, a land of immense wealth and ancient civilization. The Egyptian people, tired of Persian rule, welcomed Alexander as a liberator. He was crowned pharaoh of Egypt, and he founded a new city on the Mediterranean coast, Alexandria. It was a city that would become a center of culture, science, and trade for centuries to come. But Alexander's conquests did not stop there. In 331 BCE, he returned to the east, facing Darius III once again at the Battle of Gaugamela. Darius had assembled an even larger army, including war elephants and chariots, but Alexander's tactics proved superior. He ordered his army to feign a retreat, drawing the Persian lines into a gap, then launched a devastating counterattack. Darius fled once more, and this time he would never return. Alexander captured the Persian capital of Persepolis, looting its treasures and burning the palace to the ground, a symbolic end to the Persian Empire. With the Persian Empire defeated, Alexander turned his sights even farther east, marching into Central Asia and then into India. He crossed the Hindu Kush Mountains, a treacherous journey that cost his army dearly, and defeated the Indian king Porus at the Battle of Hydaspes. Porus, a powerful ruler with a large army and war elephants, fought valiantly, but Alexander's military brilliance prevailed. Yet even as he continued to conquer, his army grew tired. They had marched for 13 years, fought countless battles, and endured unimaginable hardships. They wanted to return home to their families and their farms. Alexander, ever ambitious, wanted to push farther east to conquer the unknown lands beyond the Indus River. But his soldiers refused to follow. Reluctantly, Alexander agreed to turn back. It was the first time he had ever been forced to abandon a campaign, a sign that even the great conqueror was not immune to the will of his men. The speed of Alexander's conquests is almost impossible to fathom. In just 13 years, he had conquered more territory than any other ruler in history. He had marched over 20,000 miles, defeated armies larger than his own, and united a vast empire that spanned 3 continents. He had never lost a battle, never been defeated, never backed down from a challenge. His army was disciplined, loyal, and fearsome, and Alexander was their unquestioned leader. He led from the front, fighting alongside his soldiers, sharing their hardships, and inspiring them with his courage and vision. To his men, he was more than a king, he was a god. To his enemies, he was a force of nature, a conqueror who could not be stopped. But Alexander's legacy was not just in the territory he conquered. It was in the world he created, a world where East and West were connected, where cultures and ideas could flow freely, where a new era of globalization was born. One of the most enduring symbols of this new world was the lighthouse Alexander commissioned in his city of Alexandria. Known as the Lighthouse of Alexandria, or the Pharos of Alexandria, it was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a towering structure that stood over 100 meters tall, guiding ships into the harbor from miles away. Construction began shortly after Alexander's death, under the rule of his general Ptolemy, but it was a vision that began with Alexander himself. He wanted Alexandria to be a center of trade and culture, a city that would connect the Mediterranean world with the East, and the lighthouse was a symbol of that vision. It was built from granite and copper with 3 distinct levels, a square base, an octagonal middle section, and a circular top capped with a statue of the sun god Helios. A fire burned at the top night and day, its light reflected by mirrors to reach as far as 56 kilometers out to sea. For nearly 1,000 years, the lighthouse stood as a beacon of hope and progress, a testament to Alexander's dream of a connected world. The lighthouse was more than just a navigation tool. It was a symbol of the globalization that Alexander's conquests had sparked. Before Alexander, the known world was divided into isolated regions with little trade or cultural exchange between East and West. But Alexander's empire broke down those barriers. He built roads and trade routes that connected Macedonia to India, Egypt to Central Asia. He encouraged his soldiers to marry local women, fostering a mix of cultures and peoples. He established cities throughout his empire, each named Alexandria, that served as centers of trade, science, and learning. Merchants traveled freely across the empire, selling silk from India, spices from Egypt, and furs from Central Asia. Scholars and artists exchanged ideas, blending Greek philosophy with Egyptian religion, Persian art with Macedonian architecture. This was the first true era of globalization, a world where distance was no longer an insurmountable barrier and where different cultures could coexist and thrive. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was the crown jewel of this new world, a symbol of the progress and connection that Alexander had brought to the known world. The lighthouse stood for over 1,000 years, surviving wars, storms, and time itself. It was damaged by earthquakes in the 7th and 14th centuries, and eventually its ruins were used to build a castle on the same site. But its legacy lives on. The word Pharos, the Greek name for the lighthouse, has become the root word for lighthouse in many languages, from French to Spanish to Italian. Its design inspired the minarets of Islamic mosques, a testament to its enduring influence. And even today, archaeologists continue to uncover the remains of the lighthouse beneath the Mediterranean Sea. A reminder of Alexander's vision of a connected world, the lighthouse was more than a building, it was a symbol of Alexander's greatest achievement, not just conquering territory, but uniting people. Yet for all his greatness, Alexander's life ended in mystery. In 323 BCE, while staying in Babylon, he fell ill. He had been drinking heavily at a feast, and soon after, he developed a high fever. For 11 days, he grew weaker and weaker, unable to speak, unable to eat, unable to rule. His doctors were helpless, unable to diagnose his illness or find a cure. On the 10th of June, 323 BCE, Alexander the Great died, at the age of 33. He had conquered the known world, built an empire that would last for centuries and change the course of history. But he died with nothing in his hands. No crown, no treasure, no heirs to inherit his empire. And to this day, no one knows for sure what killed him. The mystery of Alexander's death has fascinated historians and scientists for over 2,000 years. There are 2 main theories, each supported by evidence, each fiercely debated by experts. The first theory is that Alexander was poisoned, possibly by a cup of wine laced with a deadly toxin. The second theory is that he died of a disease carried by a mosquito, most likely West Nile virus. Both theories have merit, and both have flaws, leaving the truth buried in the sands of time. The poisoning theory has its roots in ancient accounts of Alexander's death. According to some historians, Alexander had made many enemies during his conquests, including members of his own court. His general Antipater, who had been left in charge of Macedonia while Alexander was away, was rumored to be resentful of Alexander's power. Antipater's son, Iolaus, served as Alexander's cupbearer, giving him easy access to his wine. After Alexander's death, Antipater and his allies divided the empire among themselves, leading many to suspect that they had a motive to kill the conqueror. Ancient sources claim that Alexander's symptoms, severe fever, abdominal pain, and gradual weakness are consistent with poisoning, possibly from a toxin like cura or strychnine. Some historians even suggest that Alexander's own teacher, Aristotle, may have been involved in the plot, though there is little evidence to support this claim. In modern times, scientists have examined the poisoning theory more closely. Some have suggested that Alexander may have been poisoned with calichamycin, a deadly compound produced by bacteria which causes symptoms similar to those described in ancient accounts. Others have pointed to the fact that Alexander was known to drink heavily and that his wine may have been laced with poison by someone close to him, but there is no concrete evidence to prove that Alexander was poisoned. No toxic substances have been found in his remains, though his tomb has never been definitively located, and many of the symptoms he experienced could also be explained by natural causes. The poisoning theory remains a compelling one, but it is far from proven. The second theory, that Alexander died of West Nile virus, is supported by modern medical science. West Nile virus is a mosquito-borne illness that causes fever, headache, and muscle pain in mild cases, but can lead to severe neurological damage and death in severe cases. It is prevalent in the Middle East, including Babylon, where Alexander died. The symptoms described in ancient accounts, high fever, confusion, weakness, and eventual paralysis, are consistent with severe West Nile virus infection. In 2003, a team of scientists published a study in the New England Journal of Medicine, arguing that Alexander's death was most likely caused by West Nile virus. They noted that the timing of his illness during the summer months, when mosquitoes are most active, and his symptoms align perfectly with the disease. They also pointed out that there were no known antidotes for West Nile virus in ancient times, which would explain why his doctors were unable to cure him. But the West Nile virus theory also has its critics. Some historians argue that there is no evidence of West Nile virus outbreaks in Babylon during the 4th century BCE, though this does not mean the virus was not present. Others point out that Alexander's symptoms could also be explained by other diseases, such as typhoid fever, malaria, or acute pancreatitis. Typhoid fever, in particular, was common in ancient times and causes symptoms similar to those described, including high fever, abdominal pain, and delirium. A 1998 study in the New England Journal of Medicine suggested that Alexander may have died of typhoid fever with complications leading to intestinal perforation. This theory has gained some traction, but like the West Nile virus theory, it is not definitive. There are other theories as well. Some suggest that Alexander died of alcohol poisoning, given his known heavy drinking. Others believe he may have suffered from a rare genetic disorder, such as porphyria, which causes symptoms like fever, confusion, and paralysis. Still others argue that he died of a combination of factors: alcohol abuse, exhaustion from years of campaigning, and a viral infection. The truth is, we may never know for sure what killed Alexander the Great. His body has never been found, so modern scientists cannot perform DNA tests or toxicology screenings to confirm the cause of death. The mystery remains, a fitting end to a man whose life was filled with drama, triumph, and intrigue. What we do know is that Alexander's death marked the end of an era. His empire, which had been held together by his charisma and military genius, quickly fell apart. His generals fought among themselves for control, dividing the empire into separate kingdoms. The globalization he had sparked continued, but the unity he had forged was lost. Yet his legacy endured. Alexander's conquests spread Greek culture across the known world, a period known as the Hellenistic Age. Greek language, art, and philosophy became the foundation of Western civilization, influencing everything from politics to science to literature. The cities he founded, including Alexandria, became centers of learning, where scholars made groundbreaking discoveries in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. The lighthouse of Alexandria, though destroyed, remained a symbol of his vision of a connected world. Alexander the Great was a man of contradictions. He was a brilliant military strategist, Yet he was also impulsive and reckless. He was a conqueror who killed thousands. Yet he was also a visionary who sought to unite people. He was a man who believed he was a god. Yet he died a mortal death, his body weakened by illness or poison. He conquered the known world, yet he could not conquer death. His life was a whirlwind of victory and ambition, of courage and cruelty, of triumph and tragedy. And his death was a mystery that has endured for over 2,000 years. A mystery that reminds us that even the most powerful men are vulnerable, that even the greatest empires can crumble, and that some truths are lost to time. When we think of Alexander the Great, we often think of his victories, his empire, his legacy, but we should also think of his death, a death that was as humble as his life was grand. He died with nothing in his hands, no crown, no treasure, no power. He left behind a mystery, a divided empire, and a world forever changed. Was it a cup of wine that killed him? A mosquito, or something else entirely? We may never know. But what we do know is that Alexander the Great was more than a conqueror. He was a man who dared to dream of a world without borders, a world where East and West could coexist, a world where greatness was within reach. And even in death, he continues to fascinate us, to inspire us, to remind us that the greatest legacies are not measured in territory or treasure, but in the impact we have on the world. The lighthouse of Alexandria may be in ruins. His empire may be long gone, but Alexander's spirit lives on. He was a man who conquered the known world in 13 years, a man who never lost a battle, a man who changed the course of history. He was a man who died with nothing in his hands, yet he left behind everything. A legacy of courage, ambition, and vision. His story is a reminder that power is fleeting, that glory is temporary, but that the impact of a single life can endure for centuries. And the mystery of his death is a reminder that even the greatest men are human, that even the most invincible conquerors can be undone by the smallest of things, a cup of wine, a mosquito, or the fragility of life itself. Alexander the Great's story is not just about conquest. It is about ambition, about courage, about the human desire to reach beyond our limits. It is about the power of a single individual to change the world, to unite people, to leave a legacy that endures. It is about the mystery of death, the fragility of life, and the enduring power of a single name. He was a man who owned the entire world, yet died with nothing in his hands. And in that contradiction, we find the true essence of Alexander the Great. A man who was both mortal and divine, both conqueror and visionary, both a mystery and a legend. The Imperial Shadows are full of stories of powerful men, but none are as compelling as Alexander the Great. He was a man who marched across continents, defeated empires, and forged a new world. He was a man whose death remains a mystery, a puzzle that historians and scientists still struggle to solve. He was a man who lived fast, conquered much, and died young, leaving behind a legacy that has inspired generations. His story is a testament to the power of ambition, the thrill of victory, and the mystery of death. And it is a reminder that even the greatest men are not immune to the forces of fate, whether that force is a cup of wine, a mosquito, or the inevitable end of all things. When we look back at Alexander's life, we see a man who dared to dream of something greater. He dared to conquer the known world, to unite East and West, to build a legacy that would last forever. He succeeded in many ways, but he also failed. His empire crumbled. His dream of unity was lost, and his death remains a mystery. But in that failure, we find something profound, a reminder that greatness is not measured by perfection, but by the courage to try. Alexander the Great may have died with nothing in his hands, but he left behind a world that was forever changed. A legacy that will never be forgotten, and that perhaps is the greatest victory of all.